In an ancient land, there were two men. They were from the same people, living in the same time, walking on the same earth. But inside, their hearts were completely different. One of them was a simple believer. His wealth was not great, but his heart was rich with faith. He remembered Allah, feared the hereafter, and knew that whatever a person owns in this world will one day vanish. The other man was different. Allah had tested him with a huge amount of wealth. He owned 2 great gardens. Each garden was filled with rows of grapevines hanging heavy with fruit. Around these vineyards stood tall date palms, their trunks high, their branches full of ripe dates. Between the gardens were fertile fields of crops, green and alive. A clear river flowed through the land, watering everything. The 2 gardens produced fruits in abundance, season after season, with no shortage. People would pass by and admire the beauty of his property. It looked like a small paradise on earth. Wherever the owner walked, he saw nothing but success. Rich soil, strong trees, sweet fruits, water flowing, servants working. Slowly, this constant comfort started to change his heart. Instead of saying, Alhamdulillah, and humbling himself, he began to feel proud. He looked at what he had and thought, this is mine. I deserve this. I earned this. It will never end. One day, he walked into his garden with his believing companion. The 2 men stood there together, looking at the vineyards, palm trees, and the shining water. The rich man looked around with total confidence and said something that showed the disease in his heart. He said to his companion, in a boastful way, I have more wealth than you. I have more power, more people, more status. For him, the gardens were not just land. They were a measure of who he was. He believed that money and property made him better than his friend. The simple believer listened quietly, but his heart was heavy because he could hear pride in these words. In other words, these gardens you are proud of are not signs of your greatness. They are gifts from Allah, and they can disappear whenever He wills. The believer looked at the gardens and then at himself and said, in meaning, maybe I have less wealth and fewer children than you today, but it is possible that my Lord will give me something better than your garden. And it is possible that He will send down a disaster on your garden from the sky, leaving it a smooth, bare ground. Or He could cause your water to sink deep into the earth, so you will never be able to find it again. The warning was clear. In a single moment, everything could change. The rich man could lose the very thing he thought would never end. But the owner of the 2 gardens did not listen. His heart was intoxicated by what he saw. He believed his system, his water, his land, his connections, his good luck would always protect him. Then, without warning, the powerful decree of Allah came. One day, something happened to the garden. Maybe a violent storm came and ripped through the vines. Maybe a disease spread through the plants. Maybe a flood or a fire or a series of disasters struck. The Quran does not mention the exact cause, but it tells us the result. The garden was destroyed. The 2 gardens that once looked like paradise on earth collapsed. The vines withered, the leaves turned brown, the fruits fell and rotted. The protective trellises and fences that held the vines broke down. The beautiful scene that had filled the rich man with pride became a scene of ruin and emptiness. He came to his garden and stood in shock. The land that had once been green and full of life now looked like a field that had been completely overturned. The earth was bare. The crops were gone. The trees were dead or broken. The river he had trusted might have disappeared or turned useless. The Quran describes his state. He began to wring his hands in regret over what he had spent on this garden. He had invested his money, his time, his trust into this piece of land, thinking it would always protect him. Now, he saw only destruction. He cried out in despair, saying something like, I wish I had not associated anyone with my Lord. Only now, after everything was gone, did he realize that he had put his trust in his wealth instead of Allah. In that moment, all the things he thought could help him were useless. He had no group of people to support him against the command of Allah. No tribe, no workers, no friends, no guards, no politicians, no system could bring his garden back. He had no one to rescue him, no one to stand between him and the decree of his Lord. The story then shifts from the destroyed garden to a general lesson for every listener. Allah tells us that true support, real protection, and lasting gifts come only from Him. What He gives can never be taken without His permission, and what He takes cannot be returned by anyone on earth. Allah teaches us that wealth and children are only temporary decorations of this life. They will all disappear. They can give happiness, but only briefly. What truly remains are good deeds, sincere prayers, charity, patience, trust in Allah, gratitude, and obedience. The story of the man with 2 gardens is not just a story about long ago. It is about every person who becomes proud of their garden, their business, their house, their land, their car, their followers, their beauty, their reputation. When a person looks at what they have and says in their heart, "This is because of me. It will never end. I deserve even more." They are walking the same path as the owner of the gardens. But when a person looks at what they have and says, "This is what Allah has willed. There is no power except with Allah," and they spend their blessings in Allah's path, then their garden becomes a way to reach Jannah, not a road to regret. They walked further into the garden. The rich man stared at his property and said something even worse. In his arrogance, he looked at his gardens and said that he did not think this garden would ever be destroyed. In his mind, it was too perfect, too strong, too well-watered to ever disappear. Then he went even further. He doubted the day of judgment. He said that he did not really expect the hour to come. And then, as if that was not enough, he claimed that even if he was taken back to his Lord, he expected to find with Allah something even better than what he already had. His wealth had blinded him so much that he assumed Allah would automatically favor him. His believing companion could not stay silent anymore. He looked at his friend and reminded him gently but firmly. He said, in meaning, "Do you disbelieve in the one who created you from dust, then from a drop of fluid, then shaped you into a man?" He reminded him where he came from, first dust, then a tiny drop, then a weak child, then a grown man. None of this was because of the man's power. It was all from Allah. How could he now act as if his wealth was his own permanent achievement? Then the believer corrected his perspective. He said that he believes that Allah is his Lord, and he will never associate anyone with him. His faith was clear and simple, in contrast to the arrogance of the garden owner. Then the believer gave him the key sentence, the sentence that a believer should always say when seeing blessings. He told his friend, "When you entered your garden, why did you not say, Masha Allah, la Quwwata illa Billah? This is what Allah has willed. There is no power except with Allah."